You'll be shocked to know this fact, but the easiest thing about running a business is starting the business. Yes, yes, yes. Calm down, let me explain. Now, a lot of people think that the hardest part is putting a business together, putting a name, trademarking, but big bummer, you have a longer journey ahead of you. Now, as entrepreneurs, they will tell you that there is a major challenge when it comes to running a business. Running a business literally is a Herculean task because every day comes with its own challenges. As an entrepreneur, you're dealing with betrayals, you're dealing with staff salary being due and there's no money. Sometimes you're trying to wing things, you don't even understand what you're doing, and sometimes you feel like you have plateaued the entire business and there is no idea coming to mind. So trust me, the easiest thing about running a business is starting the business. Now, as entrepreneurs, these things are called entrepreneur's nightmare. And that is what we want to talk about today. All of these things have solutions, but if you do not know how to scale your business, you will be stuck in this mix of having nightmares over and over and over again. Now, who better to have this conversation with than the emperor of growth himself? One that is an enemy to plateauing of any sort, one that likes to keep progressing and likes to see businesses progress. And I'm talking about none other than the Chief Executive Officer of Certification Edge and Seed Academy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
Okay, so we're talking today about the entrepreneur's nightmare, right? And many people would think that, I mean, before now, I used to think that the challenging part about running a business is starting the business. Oh, it's a lot of work, getting it trademarked, getting my business registered and everything like that. But then along the line, I started seeing that that is the easiest thing to do because you get to a point where you now have people working with you. You have a team that you have to manage. And even in the midst of that, there are days when you're not really 100%, but you have to show up all the same. There are days when you owe your staff salary, but you have to still pay them and there's no money. So the first thing I'm going to try to ask is, what is the most challenging part about running a business? Is it as an entrepreneur, running a business on your own, or even having a team that you're running your business with?
Okay, so as the name implies, we call it entrepreneurship. That means we have a ship, we'll need to move and sail. So there are external factors you're dealing with, the internal factors you're dealing with. There's this Jonah principle you're dealing with, whereby they have to throw someone out of the boat for there to be still. The waters were stormy until we got someone out. And in entrepreneurship, there are seasons whereby you need to just let Jonah come out of the ship. And sometimes you're dealing with storms that will just show up from nowhere, and you're afraid. Even your team members are afraid. Are we going to get where we're going? Do you know what you're doing? So it's a nightmare. But as an entrepreneur, your guts, being able to maintain focus, clarity, even though you're uncertain. So you're confidently should I say, I don't want to call it confidently uncertain. You can navigate uncertainty confidently, and you must not let people know that you're also confused. So
that means, because I used to think that many people will feel more confident when they feel like they're in charge. So now we're saying that even if you don't feel like it, you have to still be confident.
Yeah, because you must. So we call something empiricism. It's like an experiment. So many times you choose to increase your product line or conquer a new geographical area. We all uncertainty, but you have this guts feeling inside of you that you just know that even though I might not be able to tell you how, but I know we're going to get it done. So if you cannot navigate that kind of stormy waters, whereby you cannot confidently take decisions, take a bet, and not even a bet, because we call it calculated risk. You are calculating, and you also know that there's a level of uncertainty, and you're still moving towards that. And that's the most crazy part of entrepreneurship, I feel, whereby you press to make a decision, and everybody's counting on you, all your team members, even when they just wanted to, okay, tell us that we're good. And you must say confidently. They're looking at your body language, they're looking at everything, and you must be able to say we're good and all. So being out of control in business, like you said now, it's a bit when your breakthrough becomes a miracle. You know, most times entrepreneurs, today you're making money, tomorrow you're not certain, today you're making money. When you realize that you cannot control your business outcomes, then you start feeling scared. You know, you realize that, man, if I die today or I die today, you know that if you're not around, that business, nothing's gonna happen. Then you start getting scared. And that's when you realize that you don't have a business. You know, starting the good times whereby you're starting alone. You know, the best time of business, I tell you, is that when you don't have a staff. You even think you've made the best decision. You say you're moving from being an employee to an entrepreneur. And maybe as an employee, you're earning 500 grand. And the first deal you got was, when you were alone, was 2M. So they, yes, can you see now? And that's a good times.
Yeah.
But the moment you start getting people, just like when you start having children, and you are responsible to ensure that those people eat, they go to school. You ensure that you brought a woman into your house. That's when you start saying that there's pressure. So when you have a salary of about 50 million, you're starting a month, that's when you know that you have a lot of pressure. Because in those days, when you're an employee, you're just waiting for your own salary to come. And whatever happens, either they make profit or no profit, that's their business.
When it's salary time, it may look on.
Yeah. They say, Gota. Whatever. But when you now know, and that's why most times when there are public holidays, entrepreneurs are angry, you know, when they don't want to give it out because it's like, the government can declare 7 days. An entrepreneur is saying, I'm going to pay for these 7 days. Come on, how we do it? So there's a lot of pressure, and that responsibility is also what I feel that is a major challenge of entrepreneur. When you know that, man, I'm responsible, and I don't want to appear irresponsible. Because whatever when you fail, your staff, family, your people, they need to pay their rent, their landlord, depending on them, they're depending on you. There's no sorry, because they will say sorry to so many people. When you think about this pressure, that's where it becomes a nightmare. That you must succeed by force.
Okay, talking about the pressure of being able to navigate your own business, especially when you have a team, there's a counterintuitive idea that I've seen in a couple of places and people have also talked about. I read it in a book as well. A CEO, I can't remember who, said something in the lines of, I don't hire people that I tell what to do. I hire people that tell us what to do. So with that context, would we say that the best way to run a business is to have a team of people who actually also know the direction, so they're not heavily dependent on you to lead them? Because sometimes you need experts who would bring in strategies, bring in ideas, because at the end of the day, you will be stranded by yourself trying to think of how to navigate, and then everybody's waiting on your command. So what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, that's a perfect world. But a startup doesn't have money to hire the best that can think. So in the beginning of your business, depends. You might not have funds to assess the right talents. 80% of entrepreneurs, it's only when probably maybe you have some funds and you can attract them. But if you don't have funds, you're a startup, you don't have money from beyond, you have this idea you believe in so well. Most times, most entrepreneurs can afford a kind of staff. And most times, those kind of staff are people they have to tell what to do. And that's the challenge. But as they evolve, they start bringing in more quality kind of staff. They start bringing in, and they start getting better.
And they let the Jonah out of the ship.
Yeah, because those guys cannot. But however, some will grow, and some will play too. Some won't grow. But the best, perfect world, get people that will tell you what to do. That's where you see likes of Dangote, likes of they want to start a business today. They will not get people that will chasing all around. And that's why whatever business they start scales. Because they're getting the best of the best. And all they have to do is to set the direction. Those guys are putting heads together. What can we do? Okay, these are the plans. It's just like you having a salesperson and you want to achieve this goal. if you're in a small business, you're the one that will teach them the strategy, tell them when to go out. But the other one, you've gathered, he has experience, he designs a sales plan, he knows the goal, he comes up with his team himself, he hires his team, he knows who he needs, then he achieved the goal. So that's a perfect world. But most entrepreneurs that might be watching this are in different stratas. People that are just starting, people that are in the middle, people that are this. But as you evolve, as you have fun, if you want to get good people, you know how much you're gonna pay. But when you get good people, you're gonna hammer. That's the whole thing. However, it's also something I tell entrepreneurs that we must be careful so that you won't stay startup for long. Because penny wise, pound foolish. Because you pay peanuts, you are monkeys. So that's the problem. You want to also avoid that. Because the longer you stay in not seeing that hiring the right people is an investment.
It's an investment. Yeah.
The same way you pay for building, buy beautiful places, buy cars, having good talents should be seen that way. So, but what people do is that you have a big jeep, you have a big car, you have a big office, you have poor staff. There's no way that business will afford. So you rather have small office, not good looking office, but good looking staff, not good looking car, but solid people. So channel that money, because indirectly, if you have a staff that you're paying 200K, and you're looking for a kind of clients, those staff it might take them 2 years before they can meet them. But if you have someone you pay 2M to, that's money for 10 months. But this month, you start meeting the kind of clients. So you now want to know, what's your trade-off? How do you see this? Those conversations, it also depends on the gut of the entrepreneurs and what he's seeing about his business. So I believe what you're saying.
Okay, so I want to put you on the spot very quickly to share your personal experience. Have you ever been in a situation where the entire team depended on you and you had no idea what to do? How did you navigate that moment?
Okay, so this always, should I say, I mentioned earlier that entrepreneurship is like an experiment. It means that you always do what you've not done before if you want to scale. So at diverse season, I've seen myself whereby we want to pivot or we want to scale and we're moving to a place we've never been before. That's a time whereby it depends on you to say, tell us what to do. We believe in you, but man, we don't have clarity. So that's when you come out and tell people what to do. And it can be anything you want to do. It might be you're going into a new business terrain. You see entrepreneurs say, I started with this kind of business at some point, then I ventured into this and this gave me a breakthrough. Now, the moment you want to let go of the past, everybody will tell you that, are you foolish? Why are you living what you... But when you move into stormy waters, do you know that when you look back, you start seeing that, wow, it was good but you didn't know it was uncertainty. So when an entrepreneur tells you that, I knew we were going to succeed, it's always a lie. Most times when
it's a gamble.
Yeah, it's like bets, Niger. But however, there's what we call calculated risk, because you're looking at what has worked for people, and you've structured, you're setting the right culture, and you know that, man, if I've done all of these things right, then we're good to go.
And there's a clarity of focus.
Yes, so we can focus all our energy. Yeah, so basically, it's just like the core values that we always talk about, core values of Agile. We talk about focus, commitment. So run your team, yourself, you're focused, and you're committed, and you have courage to navigate stormy waters, courage to pull yourself when things are not going well. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It's being able to master your fear and move into what you're going. You have all those things in place, and you guys can work together to respect one another as a team, because you guys don't know where to go. But you just know that you're moving gradually in beats and you're learning very, very fast. And I always push the concept to entrepreneurs, what we call fail fast. Whereby, let's try it. There's nothing like overanalyzing entrepreneurship. You can never be ready. So what do? Jump into it, take the waters, learn fast. Move into it, take the waters, learn first. If you say, no, I just want to be able to swim without having to drink waters, you can never be you can be master in swimming.
That's such a powerful statement, honestly. The earlier you fail, the faster you grow.
Yeah.
So fail fast. Okay, before we go, I want us to help some entrepreneurs out there, right? So we'll just pick a few examples. Now, one of the examples that a lot of entrepreneurs face, or challenges that they face, is when salaries are due. and there's no money in the account, right? So some people would completely ignore, pretend like they don't know anything that's happening. Everybody just keep working. Some would deflect. They say, okay, we are tying your salary to performances, just different strategies and all that. What would you say that has been a fail-proof strategy too? Because sometimes, like you said, you don't want people to know that you're also confused, but at the same time, you don't want to compromise on integrity. So what would be the best strategy in that regard?
Okay, so as a person, I acknowledge that I've seen entrepreneurs get in the mode that probably they were not able to pay salaries. I've been running business for 20 years and I've not had to think about paying salaries. Why? I don't engage what I cannot pay. That's a problem. I feel that don't get into what you cannot do.
Yeah.
However, the reason why entrepreneurs get into this mode also is the issue of performance management. Because they've hired people and not delivering. And they now have so many heads that are not adding value. So we call it overhead. That overhead, the higher it is, the more pressure, because you're not taking in the pressure. So it's like monkey they walk, baboon they chop. So you are the one under that pressure. And it happens most times when entrepreneurs have not transferred the outcome to the people. In the sense that you're just telling people, go out every day and meet people. Why? To make money. So the person should know the outcome. And your measurement of the person's work, it should be about the outcome, not about going out every day. So they must also know, because typically an employee believes that if you want to start a business, you must have the money before you start a business. But that's not the case. Because the work we want to do is what will bring the money.
Yes.
But most people believe that money is supplied from heaven. There's a spirit that is giving entrepreneurs money to pay. But so how many entrepreneurs will have money and what they want to do is start doling it to people, to NGO? No. They have that money to invest. And most times, if people don't now do what they're meant to do, so most times those things happen because some employees are not giving their best, they're not committed, and entrepreneurs don't know how to drive accountability. And when that's the case, that business is bound to fail. But when we get to that point, I tell people it's time to have meetings with your team. And face the brutal facts. Call a spade a spade. Come, we cannot pay now. What should we do? We must be able to pay. People will come up with interventions. And if they cannot, we say, maybe we have to back up for a while. Maybe we have to shed weight for a while. We must make critical decisions, especially when you cannot pay, because you must be responsible to pay. So when I get to the point that I feel this person's work, I cannot pay for it again, I'll tell the person, since the performance, the KPIs, and the person is not meeting the KPI, let the person go. Don't get to the point that you have people on your team and you cannot pay them. I see that's a responsibility. It means that there's some decisions you've not been able to make, and you're stalling on those decisions, and you're putting yourself to trouble. And you need to take yourself out of that trouble.
All right, very quickly, one more question. We've talked about entrepreneur's nightmare. And we know that for every entrepreneur, there are stormy waters, right? You get to a point where it's not a smooth sail.
Yeah,
but what now separates the entrepreneurs who survive these storms from those who get swept away by the storm?
So I also feel there's a quote I saw many years ago. People that fail, they underestimate their effort and overestimate their outcomes. They believe that I just have to do little to get it. When you prepare for something and you know this is serious, you put in your energy, it becomes easy. But when you take entrepreneurship lightly, it's really, really not a simple thing. There's a lot to learn. And so if you don't take it that serious, then it becomes so hard. So I feel that is that the mindset of, I'm entering a jungle. There's no script. Now I need to learn fast. I need to pivot fast. When things are not giving me outcome, I need to do something about it fast. Now, if you have that mindset, and you know that falling does not mean you failed. At different point in time, it's just that you are learning more lessons. So you see entrepreneurs tell you that their best year is their worst year. And when you talk about that, it means somebody said one time, the entrepreneur made more billions that year, but he failed in 8 businesses and started 10 businesses. 8 businesses failed, but 2 businesses that succeeded were the lessons he learned that same year from the 8, and those 2 paid for, give abundance. So imagine you now, you felt like, most entrepreneurs, the higher you go, the more you try new things, the more you fail. But you should get comfortable with failure and learning lessons as fast as possible and not dwell on the past too much, because it erodes your confidence. If you allow failure get into your heart and your soul, you start losing belief in you. And that's one thing you can never leave. You must have that God that you know that whatever I lay my hands on shall prosper. And that's, for me, that's number one thing you need to have. And people that you see that succeed over the years is because they also have this. I also feel entrepreneurship is becoming at some point spiritual, in the sense that you must be connected and gummed to ensure that while you are sleeping, when you are drinking, you're thinking, especially when you're starting up. And also, if you marry the wrong people, you're going to fail. Marriage has a lot to do, especially with startups. If you marry someone that is not supportive, that's not someone that believes in you, if you fail at home, yes, you're going to fail outside. So that's also a nightmare. If you see entrepreneurs doing very well, check their family, check what they're doing very well. They're doing well. That is if the entrepreneur is not doing 419. There are models in Nigeria that is very crazy. That you see somebody that's not doing well at home, but the person is doing 419. So he's saying, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm successful. So it's covering up using some other mediums. But if you want to build, then you must make sure that you get that right. And the kind of people you work with matters also. Because you feed iron sharpened iron. So you feed right people. So the more you feed on the right people, they're telling you how they failed also. You don't feel that the world has turned against you. You feel that, man, there's a lesson. So, okay, this guy failed this too. And he made it again. Oh, man, I'm good. So you work with right people. You feed your mind always by reading right books, biographies, autobiographies of people that have done well. And be a student of life. And that will keep you going.
I mean, in summary, this last few points is do not underestimate the impact of your support system. There's a reason why he's called the Emperor of Growth, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ajibola Bamidele. Thank you once again for being a source of knowledge, especially to entrepreneurs and startups. Now, if there's anything that you've taken from this, you should know that entrepreneurship is strategy, is audacity, and it's confidence. Strategy in the sense that in as much as you're eager to dive in, you should know that you need to scale not just the business, but yourself. You need to know how to navigate the stormy weathers, because guess what? They're always going to come. And then confidence in the sense that no matter how many people you have on your team, you should be able to stand tall, talk to them when things are not going right, know the right people to address. If you need to sit everybody down and talk to them, you should do that. And lastly, audacity. That's my favorite, because you have to learn to dive in once you have the idea. The faster you fail, the faster you climb, right? The earlier you learn to fail, the earlier you learn the lessons that you need, to grow in your business. I mean, with all of this, I feel like startups should literally just buckle their seatbelts, because there's a lot that you can do with this information. Thank you once again to Mr. Ajibola Bamidele, and thank you for watching this episode.
Seed Academy, your growth partner.